Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Okay, today we are going to discuss about very special, great quality of the Buddha. That is about the great compassion, the great compassion of the Buddha. That is a topic that we are going to talk about today in the morning. Right, when we think about this, as we know, the Buddha, in his previous birth as a Bodhisattva, we know that he has started fulfilling his perfection during the time of the Dipankara Buddha, as you know that. So, during this long journey in samsara, he has fulfilled all the perfections and he wanted to get rid over all the sufferings which all the beings in this world are undergo. So, Siddhartha, as a bodhisattva, he fulfilled all these perfections during this long journey of samsara. That because of he has got the great compassion towards the human being and including all the beings in the world. Not only the human world, devas, brahmas and all. The beings included in Kamavachara, Rupavachara and Arupavachara. So we know that emphasizes the great compassion of the Buddha. When we talk about this great compassion, first of all, we need to have an idea what great compassion is. Compassion is the heart that trembles in the face of suffering. It is aspired to as the noblest quality of the human heart. The motivation underlying all meditative path of healing and liberation. Paradukke sati sadhuna hade kampana karotiti karuna. These are the Buddha's words how he give the definition for compassion, karuna. In other hand, I will explain you compassion is a response to suffering. Compassion is a response to suffering. The inevitable adversity all human beings will meet in their lives, whether it is the pain embedded in the fabric of aging, sickness, and death, or the psychological and emotional afflictions that debilitate the mind. So we know that this is a kind of emotional behavior by seeing the suffering of other beings. When we consider that compassion is a multi-textures response to pain, sorrow, kindness and empathy, generosity and acceptance. So this kind of the words that we can use. The strands of courage, tolerance, equanimity are equally woven into the cloth of compassion. So once we develop tolerance, equanimity, generosity, empathy and kindness, so that because of by seeing the sufferings of one's own self as well as the others. So always try to eradicate, get rid over the sufferings of others. The above all, compassion is the capacity to open to the reality of suffering and to aspire to its healing. So, how the Buddha healed the world? It's very important. Uh, King Satchagavesi, King Kusala Gavesi, he was in investigation with this. He has done a research in this samsara, how to heal the world. Yeah. So with the great compassion of the Buddha, he also known as the great compassionate one, Maha Karunikayanan Vahansa. So the name denotes to the Buddha that because of he has got that great compassion, this quality. The Pali commentaries distinguish between Karuna and Metta in the following commentary manner. Buddhaghosa, the Venerable Buddhaghosa mentioned in his commentaries, Karuna is the desire to remove harm and suffering. Okay? Karuna is the desire to remove harm and suffering. Ahita dukkha apanaya kamata. From others, we know that while metta, the desire to bring about the well-being and happiness. Hita sukha upanaya kamata. Hita sukha upanaya kamata. So we know that this, according to this explanation included in the commentaries, the karuna and metta very similar words, but it's differ in this manner. Karuna is the desire to remove harm and suffering of others. Metta is the desire to bring about the well-being and happiness of others. Okay, metta and karuna. Now I think that you have an idea, clear idea about the great compassion. Is that so, Bante? Yeah, some idea about what is karuna is. Okay, especially the Buddha's word you need to remember, that is para dukke sati sadinam hade kampanam karoti iti karuna, and how it's differ from other the words metta, loving kindness and all, and what are the qualities that we need to develop mentally, like kind of empathy, generosity, equanimity, tolerance, kind of qualities that we need to develop within our mind. Okay, when we consider this, it is very important, Gautama Sutta of Sanyutta Nikaya. What's the sutta? Gautama Sutta. Yes, Gautama Sutta of Sanyutta Nikaya. So this explanation is very important if you can note down. The world is in difficulty. Birth, decay, death and rebirth. And end of this decay and death is not seen. So we cannot see the end of decay and death. When will it end? Right? So it explained by the Buddha that he was always worrying about the suffering of the human being, the suffering of the being in this world. Kiccang vatayang loko apanno jayaticha jiyaticha miyaticha chavaticha uppajjaticha atacha panimassa dukkassa nissaranang nappajanati jara maranassa kudassu nama imassa dukkassa nissaranang pannisaisiti jara maranassa. According to Gautama Sutta of Sanyutta Nikaya, Buddha has explained these verses. It emphasizes the Buddha's compassion. He's worrying about this world. The world is full of suffering. There is birth, there is decay, there is death and rebirth. Okay, so there is no stops. When will it end? All this suffering. So he's worrying about this. He thinks about this. How to end this suffering? How to end the death? How to end the decay? How to end the aging? How to end the birth? So he was in the search of this, according to Gautama Sutta. It emphasizes the Buddha's great compassion. If somebody is worrying about others' suffering, others' birth, others' aging, others' decay, others' death, that none else. That is compassion. Okay? So, in this sutta, it mentioned the Buddha's great compassion. And another very special teaching, Dveda Vitakka Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya. Dveda Vitakka Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya. So Buddha has mentioned here, O monks, I have opened the way where you can walk happily without fear. I have closed the wrong way. Monks, I have done which should be done by a compassionate teacher to his followers. So he has mentioned that Itiko bhikkave vivato maya kemo maggo sovattiko patigamaniyo pihito kummaggo uhato ocharato nasita okacharika yam bhikkave sattara karaniyang savakanang hitesinang anukampang upadaya. Yam bhikkave sattara karaniyang savakanang hitesinang anukampang upadaya. Monks, I have done which should be done by a compassionate teacher to his followers. So he himself says that he as a compassionate teacher has fulfilled, has done what should be done for his followers. That is opening up the way, opening up the doors to the end of suffering, showing the path to end of suffering of the people. That because of his compassion. That because of his compassion. So when we think about then Patisambhidha Magga, the Buddha's compassion is known as Mahakaruna. Nowhere we can see that in the Pali Canon, the compassion is mentioned as Mahakaruna, but in the Patisambhidha Magga, it mentioned the Buddha's compassion as Mahakaruna. So where we can find the compassion of Buddha mentioned as Mahakaruna? Where? In the Patisambhidha Magga. Yes. Buddhanam Bhagavatanam Sattesu Mahakaruna Okkamati. Buddhanam Bhagavatanam Sattesu Mahakaruna Okkamati. The Buddha's compassion is known as Mahakaruna according to Patisambhidha Magga. Yes. So when we talk about the important places where the Buddha's compassion highlighted, right? As we discussed earlier, the particular sutta has mentioned the Buddha's great compassion, right, by himself. And there are some stories where we can highlight the Buddha's great compassion. First, the story of Brahmin Radha. Okay, so do you know the story, Brahmin Radha? Yeah. So we know that there was a Brahmin called Radha during the Buddha's time who wished to ordain as a bhikkhu. Who wished to ordain as a bhikkhu. He requested the bhikkhus make him as a monk. But nobody is willing to ordain him as a monk as he is very old. As he's an old man, so nobody is willing to ordain him as a monk. So he was very sad because of this, right? And he was weak, and he was day by day uh, grief of this, that because of he couldn't ordain as a monk in the sasana. Our Buddha, who got noticed this, right? So the Brahmin Radha's appearance is weaker and weaker, and his complexion turned dark, you know. So Buddha questioned from Radha, what's going on? Is everything okay? So then the Brahmin Radha mentioned that he is willing to ordain as a monk, but in the temple no monks is willing to ordain him as a monk. So then the Lord Buddha summoned the bhikkhus and they asked, why, venerables, Radha is asking the monkhood. He is willing to ordain as a monk. Right? So now with the intention of becoming a monk, right? He is now hopeless. He couldn't fulfill his hope during this period of time. So then the Buddha has asked from Venerable Sariputta, right? Then this Sariputta mentioned that when he was walking his arms round, this Brahmin offered him alms with the great devotion and all. And the Sariputta mentioned that great deeds done by this Brahmin, and he ordained this Brahmin Radha in his guidance as a monk, as well as he gave him the high ordination. So in this place, it is highlighted how Buddha get rid of, remove, eradicate, free the suffering of Brahmin Radha, and how he make Brahmin Radha happy. So another story of Sopaka. Sopaka is a small child who was ill-treated by his stepfather. Sopaka was ill-treated by his stepfather, and he was suffering in the cemetery at whole night because his stepfather punished him and took him away from the house and tied onto a dead body in the cemetery. Whole night he was crying and lamenting with the fear and all. He is suffering in the cemetery. So our Buddha, he noticed Sopaka, this little child, and he helped him to get rid of his all the suffering and ordained him as a monk in the sasana, and showed the paths to eradicate all the suffering from his mind and help him to attain Nibbana, the ultimate happiness. So So this is also highlighted the Buddha's great compassion. So another story which is highlighted the Buddha's great compassion, how he helped to get rid over the suffering of others. As we know that the compassion is helping others to overcome their suffering. So Chullapantaka, there was two brothers from Buddha's time, Mahapantaka and Chullapantaka. Mahapantaka is the elder one, Chullapantaka is the younger one. Mahapantaka, he was the elder one who resided in the same temple with the Buddha, and his brother, younger brother Chullapantaka. Chullapantaka, he was not that much keen of studying and all. So Mahapantaka asked him to memorize a single stanza, single verse, Pali verse. But during the 3 months of time, he couldn't memorize this single stanza. And Mahapantaka, the elder brother, summoned Chullapantaka and said that this monkhood, this asana is not suitable for you. So it's better to disrobe and go from the asana and go your home and start cultivating lands and all. Chullapantaka was very sad about this because he wanted to become a monk and he wanted to lead a monastery life. He is not willing to disrobe, go home. So here he was very sad and he was started crying and lamenting. And with the crying, he started his journey to home. On the way, at the gate, he met the Buddha. Buddha asked him, Chullapantaka, where are you going? So he mentioned all the story. He mentioned that his brother asked him to go home, disrobe. So then the Buddha mentioned that, why? What's the reason of that? What's the reason of asking you to disrobe? And he mentioned he could memorize a single stanza during the 3 months of time and all. Then the Buddha asked him, this asana is mine, right? So I do not ask you to go home, disrobe, right? So you don't need to memorize the stanza. So very simple activity he gave Chullapantaka, that is rubbing white cloths, right? So saying Rajo Haranan, Rajo Haranan, removing dirt, removing dirt, removing dirt. Instead of removing dirt, he noticed that after some time, it gets dirt. He is always saying, removing dirt, removing dirt. Instead of removing dirt, he noticed that it gets dirt, the white cloth. He penetrates on Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta, how the things change, and develop his mind, and he started his meditation on that spot. So at the daybreak, so he attained arahantship. So by attaining arahantship, he mentioned he's happy, right? After realize this, when we think about that Chullapantaka Thera Ghata, the Buddha has mentioned here in this Chullapantaka, how he motivated by the Buddha. He was motivated by the Buddha to attain this stage, ultimate happiness, the Nibbana, Arahantship. So he has mentioned this, Bhagava Tatta Agachi Sisam Maiham Paramasi. Bahaya mam gahetwane sangharamang pavesati. So it has mentioned that Buddha's kindness and unconditional love, okay, by Chullapantaka. He has mentioned here during these 3 months was motivated by the Buddha, showing kindness and unconditional love, was able to attain arahantship. Yes. So we know that how Buddha asked, how Buddha took this little Chullapantaka towards him, and Sisam Maiham Paramasi, how he showed his kindness, touching his head as the father or mother touch his child's head. So how he motivated by the Buddha, showing unconditional love, showing kindness, showing compassion. That's the beginning of his entire understanding. That's the beginning of his removing all the suffering and attain the arahantship. This is how he was motivated by the Buddha with his great compassion. It has mentioned in the Theragatha. So if you can refer Thera Theri Gatha, so you can find out so many incidents where the Buddha guided all these Theras and Theris towards the ultimate happiness, removing their suffering. Okay, the fourth one, the story of Vasetti. Story of Vasetti also highlighted the Buddha's great compassion. Vasetti, who was suffering of losing his own child, so we know that the Vasetti, how she attained arahantship by practicing the Buddha's Dhamma, Buddha's teaching. So we know that how she eradicated all the suffering, how she penetrate her mind and remove the raga, dosa and moha, ragakkaya, dosakkaya, mohakkaya, nibbana, in the sense how she attained the nibbana, arahanthood. So that because of the great compassion of the Buddha. As well as the story of Sunita also highlighted. The story of Sunita also highlighted the Buddha's great quality of compassion. Sunita was a laborer, right, from an outcast family, right, Sunita. One day he was cleaning the road and the Buddha was in his arms round. So in this time, Buddha went close to Sunita and asked him to join with this sasana and get rid of all your suffering, all your sadness, all the burdens in your life. Then Sunita mentioned that it's not suitable the person like him ordained as a monk in our sasana, as he was from an outcast family. But Buddha mentioned that his sasana is open to all and everybody from each corner in the world, right? He do not consider any caste, any clan. Whoever from Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, whatever the caste, I don't mind. My sasana is open to all the human beings, so that you can ordain as a monk. So then Sunita ordained as a bhikkhu in the sasana, and he eradicate all the suffering, right, in his life. And he attained arahantship finally with the guidance of the Buddha. And there are so many incidents when we go through the early Buddhism where we can highlight the Buddha's great compassion. Story of Matta Kundali, story of Kisagotami, story of Patachara, and the story of the girl who was going to suicide herself, that because of ill treated of her mistress. Okay, there are so many incidents in the Buddhist history which is highlighted the Buddha's great compassion, especially that we need to focus our attention regarding the Buddha's practices during this long journey of samsara. That because of he wanted to eradicate, he wanted to stop birth, decay, death, and rebirth of the being. He noticed that the beings are suffering that because of the birth. He wants to find a way how to end the birth. And on a Vesak full moon day, he realized the truths. He realized the Four Noble Truths, how to end the suffering. And he noticed why the people are suffering in this samsara, that because of their craving. And he guided the beings in this world how to end this suffering, how to eradicate all the defilements, how to eradicate craving, and practice the Eight Noble Paths. That is the way to end the birth. That is the way to end the suffering. So that was all the Buddha's advices for the monk, for the man, for the devas, for the brahmas, any kind of beings. Kattabbam kusalan charitabbam brahmacharyan natti jata samarana. So once you are born, so suffering follows. So therefore, to get rid of suffering, we need to end our birth. So Buddha is born in this world to end the suffering. Buddhas are born to this world to show the path to end the suffering. It's highlighted the great compassion of all the Buddhas. That is why all the Buddhas are known as Mahakarunika. Okay, I think that you have really understand what great compassion is. So if you have got any doubt or any questions, shall we discuss? Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please ask.